Welcome back to Flashbacks. I'm Tony from Comic Book Fans United. In today's episode, we're going to be talking about guerrilla warfare. Now, this week's episode marks the return of Gorilla Grodd to the show, and his plan in this episode is to create more intelligent gorillas like him. In the comics, we've actually seen him do this several different ways. He's basically always trying to either take out the Flash or take over Central City, and usually it's either by creating more intelligent gorillas or by manipulating other intelligent gorillas into doing his bidding. This season there's been a lot of speculation surrounding Henry Allen, and this episode is no different. I've seen a lot of people suspect that this Henry Allen that we're seeing in this episode is not the Earth 1 Henry Allen. I actually believed that it was. I know that it's shot in a way that may have you second guessing everything, but just from the way he calls Barry Slugger and the way he recalls events from the past and the trial where he talks about his own family judging him on thinking that he really killed his wife in front of his son, just all of that I really kind of bought. And maybe I'm a sucker. Maybe that wasn't the real Henry Allen, but I'm just throwing that out there that I believed, at least in this particular episode, it was the real deal. I always greatly appreciate when the show tries to get even closer to the comics, and in this episode we see Barry asking about Eobard Thawne's ring where he kept his suit, and it turns out that Harrison Wells from Earth 2 may be able to help him figure out how to store his own suit in that ring. So Kendra Saunders has never seen or heard of the Princess Bride? I don't know, this kind of fuels more of my theory that she's actually from Thanagar and not, say, another alternate Earth. While on the subject of 80s classics, the way this episode ends with Cisco showing up to Jitters to win back Kendra's favor with the picnic basket over his head is an homage to the movie Say Anything starring John Cusack, from the way he's holding the basket down to the fact that they're actually playing In Your Eyes on the soundtrack. So any chance I get to talk about Wally West, I will take, and in this episode we see Joe feel a little guilty about being jealous over the relationship Barry has with Henry Allen. And it really comes down to the fact that he is not Barry's real father. When Wally does show up later on in this season, and Joe is going to find out that Wally is actually his son, it's going to be interesting to see the kind of relationship that they have. We don't know how they're going to introduce him just yet, but in the comics, Wally has never had a good father figure, at least outside of Barry Allen. His father is always either a criminal in jail, or just a deadbeat, or kind of white trash, along with his mom. So I'm really excited to see how Joe and Wally kind of mesh together. So back in season 1, when they did their first Grodd episode, I pointed out the fact that I thought it was actually a good way to introduce the character Grodd by having him be a genetically modified gorilla already in Star Labs, and how it would be too silly to introduce the concept of Gorilla City. Well, they did it, and they did it in such an amazing fashion, where they have Barry fighting Grodd, and he punches him through the wormhole to Earth 2, and Grodd lands in a jungle in Africa, and the camera pans out, and there it is. We see this huge, Gorilla City settlement with giant monuments made, and it looks amazing, and I'm, beyond excited for it. I had goosebumps even, talking about it right now, because Gorilla City is such an important part of the Flash comics, and as silly as it sounds, but let me give you a little background on Gorilla City. It's run by another intelligent gorilla named Salivar, and Salivar and Grodd are essentially polar opposites. Salivar is all about peace and nonviolence, and that's how he's always run Gorilla City, and Grodd is, a bit of a megalomaniac. He's always about taking things by force, and we've always seen stories where Grodd and Salivar are fighting over Gorilla City, or Grodd takes over Gorilla City and uses those gorillas to then try to invade Central City and take out the Flash. Another interesting aspect about Gorilla City, though, is that they also kind of worship the Flash as a deity, and I'm very curious to see if they're going to introduce that anywhere down the line in this series. I would love to see Salivar, and I would love to see him show up in his big purple cape. But again, exciting to see Gorilla City used on this show, and it's something I never would have expected them to do, especially after season 1. Now that about covers it for Guerrilla Warfare, and it doesn't look like we're going to get an episode next week because they promoted the crossover event in 2 weeks. If there isn't an episode next week, I will put up a video. It's not going to be obviously covering an episode, but it's going to be something special that I've been thinking about doing for a while now, and this is the perfect time to do it. And that wraps it up for this episode, so be sure to sound off in the comments below if you've got something to say. Leave a like on this video if you've been enjoying the series, and be sure to subscribe to the channel and share the videos with your friends so that way the channel can grow. You can check us out over at geekade.com, and I'm happy to announce that on December 6th, fingers crossed, we should have our main podcast back up and running. We haven't decided exactly what we're going to be talking about yet, but I'm excited to at least sit down with Sam, Isaac, Jose, and anyone else we can get to sit down and shoot the shit for a couple hours. So that way we got some episodes for you guys in the month of December. Alright, I'll see you guys next week.